All right, good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to The Agenda, where we hold discussions on issues shaping our nation's future. I am Chike Ubogu. Today, we're diving into a sobering topic that is hitting headlines and households alike. And that's the rising tide of poverty in our country. Recent projections from the World Bank and the PricewaterhouseCoopers paint a stark picture. And that is poverty. The poverty rates could climb to over 60% by the end of this year, affecting up to 141 million Nigerians. That's more than half our population struggling below the poverty line, with warnings of a shrinking middle class and calls for urgent social interventions. But why is this happening, despite all the economic reforms? What does it mean for everybody in Nigeria and the everyday Nigerian? And how can we turn the tide? Well, joining me this morning to unpack this is Ignatius Ofino, an economist and public affairs commentator. Ignatius, welcome to The Agenda.
Good morning, Mazi Chike Ubogu.
Well, that title is what I have not paid for.
Don't worry, you are a red cap chief.
Well,
you are a red cap chief.
Okay, maybe Ignatius Ofino will sponsor my chieftaincy title.
By the special grace of God.
Let's start with the numbers. The World Bank estimates that by 2026, poverty could reach 62%, up from around 61% last year. And that's pushing an additional 2 million people into hardship. PricewaterhouseCoopers echoes this in their Nigeria Economic Outlook 2026, titled Turning Macroeconomic Stability into Sustainable Growth, projecting the same 62% rate affecting 141 million people due to weak income growth and persistent inflation. So now, Ignatius, break this down for us. What is driving these figures?
Thank you very much. What is poverty in the first instance? Poverty is a state or a condition in which an individual lacks the financial resources or capacity to cater for his or her needs in order to improve or enhance his or her well-being. I repeat again, what is poverty? Poverty is a state or a condition in which an individual lacks the financial resources or capacity to provide basic needs in order to enhance his or her own welfare or well-being. Now, when we are talking about poverty, it's rather sad that in Nigeria today, the poverty is arising on an alarming rate. World Bank report came out. It was not favorable. IMF report on poverty index in Nigeria came out too. It was not also favorable too. So we have a long way to go when we are talking about poverty reduction. Poverty can never be eradicated, but it can be reduced to the barest minimum. Poverty can never be eradicated, but it can be reduced to the barest minimum. So when we are talking about macroeconomic variables, there are three. We have GDP, gross domestic product.
Yes.
We have what we call inflation or inflationary trend. Then the third one is what we call the rate of unemployment. There are the root cause of poverty. Now, one of the root cause of poverty is what we call government economic policies or policy reforms that are not favorable, that only favors the capitalist rich and not the ordinary citizens. Now, in the past, there used to be what we call 3 levels of economic development. We have the top cadre, we have the middle class, and we have what we call the low class. But in Nigeria today, the middle class has naturally what? Fizzled out. Because of what? Increasing rate of poverty. Poverty that is human-induced. Now, when we look at what is actually going on in this country, there is one thing we have failed. Agricultural development precedes industrial development. Where are the industries today in Nigeria? They have become moribund. You know that the agricultural sector is the largest employer of labor. And we're having a lot of problems in Nigeria today. We don't have a stable power supply. It's a problem. A stable power supply drives the economy, especially for those who are artisans, those who are into vocational trade. We have what we call micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. So for micro and small-scale enterprises, the engine room has always been what? The power sector. Our power sector, we have failed in that area. So we want our economy to grow. How will it grow when we don't have a stable power sector? What about the policy reform of government? Of recent, the Central Bank of Nigeria decided to increase the lending rate. How many investors will be willing to invest? So it's a problem. So when we are talking about poverty in Nigeria, it is multi-dimensional. There was one time, some few years ago, one bank report said that we have over 133 million Nigerians who have been affected in multi-dimensional poverty. There was one time they said Nigeria has become the poverty capital in the world of the world. There was a time they said India was the poverty capital of the world, but they decided to introduce certain economic reforms. And today, India is no longer the poverty capital of the world, but it's unfortunate my own country, Nigeria, has been designated as the poverty capital of the world, even in the midst of abundant resources. Wagner conducted a research in the Middle East and in Africa. That was why they came with that conclusion. The paradox of poverty in the midst of plenty. That in the Middle East, they have natural resources, oil and gas. In Africa, they have solid minerals. They also have what we call liquid minerals too, oil and gas. And yet, their citizens are poor. So they now came out with that submission, that conclusion, that this is what we call the paradox of poverty in the midst of plenty. So it's very ironical.
You've ruled out some things that drive the figures, released by the World Bank and the PricewaterhouseCoopers. And they are very grim, as it were. And the World Bank knows that while growth is projected at 4.3% for sub-Saharan Africa in 2026, Nigeria's gains are trickling down enough to curb poverty. So we'll explore these impacts after this short break. We'll go on this break. Don't go away. It's still the agenda.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
All right, welcome back to the agenda. I've been speaking with Ignatius Ofino. Ignatius, PricewaterhouseCoopers PricewaterhouseCoopers has warned that without stronger job creation and productivity, that it might be very difficult for Nigerians to thrive, as it were. Poverty reductions will still falter without job creations. And the World Bank similarly projects a peak at 62% this year, 2026, before a slight dip to 61% in 2027, but only if reforms hold. Now, how did we get here from 40% in 2019 to 60% in 2026?
Thank you very much, Chike.
And these are according to the figures from the World Bank and the PricewaterhouseCoopers.
We don't regulate our population growth. And that has been a problem in this country. Advanced nations of the world, they know that resources are limited, but human want is unlimited. You need resources to satisfy human want. Do we regulate our population growth? No! And it's a problem. The time has come for the government itself to come out with a rule that we want to regulate our population as Nigerians. One. Then two, again, when we are talking about the rate of unemployment, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria is very high. There are no jobs. Why? Because we don't have industries. Government is supposed to provide the enabling environment for industry to thrive. And industry cannot thrive if there is no stable power supply. Industry cannot thrive if there is no guaranteed security. Do you know that this issue of terrorism also affected our corporate image? It's affected us. Now, the issue of foreign direct investment into the country is low because of the issue of terrorism. So there's a big problem on ground affecting Nigerians. I remember in the past, there used to be some manufacturing companies in this country. Where are they today? They have left the shores of this country. If assume the president now decide to lobby with them, because you have to lobby to convince them to come back, what are they going to meet? All those factories have been converted to religious worship centers. Does it speak well? Assuming when they are returning back, they still met something on ground. Then the government can decide to say, this is what we are going to do, assist. Let us join together in partnership. But here now, they are not going to meet anything on ground. What they are going to meet is what? A religious worship center built on those factories. So this is not a serious country. So there's a big problem on ground. We keep producing graduates that cannot be employed or that are unemployable. The so-called political class in Nigeria today, you know what they have done? Instead of them to establish industries, even at a micro level, what they are doing now is this: they are building hotels and event centers. What are they trying to promote? Nigerians are the judges. Your senators, who are supposed to provide companies, business firms, they go ahead building what we call hotels, building event centers. Building hotels, building event centers. What are they trying to promote? So we have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. If today government is supposed to provide job, let's say cottage industry, the Kaduna textile factories, also, I remember that time, a lot of workers worked in that place. Now it's becoming moribund.
We had Niger March.
Yes.
We had Excite Battery.
Yes. Isoglass is there. Where are they today?
We had Tropical Engineering.
Yes. UAC, Liver Brothers. So we lost it out because we felt that we are going by the way of it's corruption. And we're having leaders that are not even kind enough and compassionate. Leaders that can see the future. Do you know what this man did? Lee Kuan Yew. He transformed Singapore from third world country to first world country. We need a leader in Nigeria that is going to transform Nigeria from a developing country to a developed country.
It's doable.
Yes, it's possible. That is going to transform Nigeria from an import-dependent country to an exporting country. That is the type of economic policy that we want. During campaign, Nigeria should ask questions from those leaders. We are not asking questions. Government media organization too. The question they are supposed to ask those presidential candidates, they are not asking them those questions. Now, if we want a stable power supply in Nigeria, in order to create more jobs, you have to ban the importation of what? Generators. Not minding whose ox is God. That's the first instance. Stable power supply. Power will run the industries. Then you must also ensure that the fuel is readily available at an affordable rate. Now, look at the amount we are paying to buy 1 liter of fuel. It's too costly. To me, it's too costly. It's too costly. There is a way you do it.
But many will argue with you that it's one of the cheapest in the world, even at 839 naira.
One of the cheapest, fine. What
Yes.
about the issue of the foreign exchange rate concerning our currency, our local currency, the naira? Does it have value anymore? Does it have value anymore? Because when you are making comparison with those countries, you have to make comparison with the exchange rate between the naira and their own local currency. So it's not about rhetorics. You know what this government is trying to do? You know, sometimes when you look at our government, they are more involved in what we call rhetorics. Public governance is about service delivery. Now, when you're talking about public governance, you talk about security. How do I provide security for the people? You talk about job creation. How do we create job for these people? You create the enabling environment. You create introduce what we call good economic policy reforms that will be favorable to indigenous investors and to foreign investors. Then again, you talk about the healthcare delivery system. How do we provide a quality healthcare delivery system to the people? You talk about the educational policy of your government. You talk about what? The transport policy as well. Because manufacturing sector will produce goods. And those goods must be what? Be transported. You have to sit down. The government must sit down and think. This is what we are going to do differently.
Are you saying that the political class, especially leaders, are intellectually lazy? Is that what you're saying?
Most of them are not philosophers. What they are interested is Emilio entitlement mentality. I want to rule Nigeria. Come and rule. Come and chop. When you are talking about a leader who believes in Nigeria, the leader will be willing to die for the sake of Nigeria. You will know it.
Because of our time, let's move on. Globally, if you look at this whole thing we've been talking about, the World Bank highlights the post-pandemic era, that recovery plan, and they say it has been uneven. Some people have recovered. Some people have not recovered from the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Yes. There are some countries that have picked up, and there are some countries that are about 4 or 5 years behind, as it were. And if you look at the sub-Saharan Africa, there is rising poverty up to 40%, according to the World Bank report. We have 40% of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa are still in high poverty. But for Nigeria, it means more ultra-poor people.
Yes.
Ultra-poor households who are unable to meet their basic needs. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, the National Bureau of Statistics, in the north, it's very interesting to know that in the north we have about 87 million people who are in multi-dimensional poverty. And in the southern part of Nigeria is about 47 million. In the north, about 86, and in the south, about 47 million people as it were. Now, is that not a source of worry? That's one. Secondly, two questions. Is that not a source of worry? And secondly, can we ever recover from the post-pandemic trauma as a country?
Yes, we can recover. But the ball lies in the court of the president. If he wants us to recover, and if he's being sincere. Poverty index in Nigeria is high. The rate of unemployment in Nigeria is high. The standard of living in Nigeria is low. So we have to be honest to ourselves. These are not just mere figures. No, they are real. Those are the quantum. There is multidimensional poverty in Nigeria. When we talk about the basic needs of man, they include what? Food, shelter, clothing. How many Nigerians today can be able to eat 3 square meals in a day? How many of Nigerians today has what we call access to shelter? We have homeless children today. We have street children today. Nowhere to live. They live inside the cold in Nigeria. Some are now living in IDPs too. The failure of government to provide shelter for its citizens. So we are having a lot of problems in this country. So now there is no longer the middle class. It has been phased out by the politicians themselves. Those who are actually rich in Nigeria today, I'm going to classify them. Some through legitimate means, some through illegitimate means. Those who are actually rich in Nigeria today, one, the political class, who have stolen from our commonwealth. Those who are indulging money rituals. Those who are into 419, fraudsters. Those who are into drug trafficking. But the rest of us, they have now decided to classify us as what? Low-income earners or zero-income earners. You know, those who are unemployed, they are called zero-income earners. If you are employed today, the tendency is there for you to be paying your tax. But because you are not being employed, the government is also losing when it comes to the issue of what? Tax revenue. So it is necessary for a country to provide what? Job for its citizens. That is why in economics today, we have what we call human capital development. So the human capital development in Nigeria is low. Agricultural sector precedes industrial sector. When you look at the agricultural sector, it's the largest employer of labor. Then the value chain is there. Most of our kids today don't know, I hope I'm not trying to advertise, most of our kids today don't know that beverage, the beverage that we used to take. I don't want to mention the name. But there is a popular beverage. It starts with letter B, end with letter A.
Bonvita.
Yeah.
Many of them don't know Bonvita.
Yeah, that the raw material.
They don't even know Pronto.
Yes, that the raw material is gotten from agriculture, cocoa.
Yes.
They don't know.
Yes.
They don't know that most of this tire, the tire in daddy's car is a product from where? From rubber. The rubber plantation, where is it? That moment we say, I want to cook rice, I want to cook soup, I need palm oil. That palm oil is gotten from oil palm.
Even the book, the notebook.
Yes.
It's from paper, from wood.
Yeah, from wood. They don't know.
But those woods are no longer there.
Now, if you tell someone that I'm into agriculture, they mock you. They make derogatory statement against your person. So in this country, I begin to ask myself, what type of country is this? The agricultural value chain. It happened to be the largest employer of labor in Africa because Africa is an agrarian society. Then two, the railway system. It was in the past, it used to be the largest employer of labor in the transportation sector then. Then when we talk about the manufacturing sector, we have to develop our steel industry. Failure to develop Ajaokuta steel. We have not gotten it right. That has been the problem. I don't know the politics they are playing with it. They will tell us that it is 80% completion. Then what is stopping that 20% left? You have to develop the Ajaokuta steel industry. The iron ore is there in large deposit. So when you are talking about the manufacturing sector to thrive in Nigeria, the manufacturing sector can never thrive in Nigeria except you decide to develop and reform Ajaokuta steel industry. And you know any country that has a large deposit of iron ore is a potential steel power.
Well, dear listener, if you are affected by these issues, well, stay tuned. We are discussing solutions next. Get your comments coming on the app X at DominionCast. Let's look at impacts on the middle class and society. Ignatius, you've talked about the middle class, the eradication, the shrinking middle class. But PricewaterhouseCoopers and the World Bank warns that it is accelerating. So what does it look like on the ground so far? You've talked about the shrinking middle class, or the middle class that is almost not in existence anymore. But realistically, do we still have that middle class today in Nigeria?
You know, when we are
with an open mind.
Well, yes, I have to be frank and sincere. The middle class in Nigeria today is naturally fizzling out. Now, where do you classify a professor? ASU will tell you that my take-home pay cannot take me home. That has been the ASU slogan. It has been their mantra, that my take-home pay cannot take me home. That shows that the amount they are earning can no longer sustain them and their families. And in the past, Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, happened to be a member of the middle class. Directors in banks happen to be members of what? The middle class. Bank managers, we are classified as members of what? Of the middle class. But now look at what is going on now. Those who are actually at the top cadre, they are the politicians. Like I mentioned in the past, those especially corrupt politicians. They are the ones that are already now in the top cadre. The rest of us now, probably they have decided to classify us as the low caste. But there is one thing you must also understand. We have what we call the poorest of the poor. We have the rural poor. The rural poor is different from the urban poor. So you don't generalize poverty like that in Nigeria. You have to classify them based on their environment. We have the rural poor. We have the urban poor. The rural poor does not enjoy basic amenities. But for the urban poor, he also enjoys certain basic amenities. But there is one thing I've discovered again: individual struggle and those who depend on what we call divine providence, according to them. Rather than asking the government to do the needful, they depend on divine providence for their own immediate survival. I'm talking about the urban poor now. But for the rural poor, he does not enjoy electricity. He does not enjoy what we call a healthcare delivery system, a quality healthcare delivery system. His children does not go to a quality school. So there is a problem on ground. When we are talking about multidimensional poverty in Nigeria, who is to blame? You blame the government the more because the government is in charge of the resources. They have widened the gap between the have and the have-not. And it's a problem.
Now, you talked about rural areas and the urban areas.
Yes.
Poverty, there's the level of poverty in the rural area and the level of poverty in the urban area. But let us look at women and the youth, as it were. Their impacts seem disproportionate, as it were. But do you think the women and the youth are still going to survive it based on their gender and the labor force? Or do you think they are the worst hit out of all these?
When we are talking about the labor force in economics, it talks about those who are employed and those who are not yet, who ought to be employed, but they don't have job yet. You are talking about the labor force of a country. You talk about those who are employed, one, and those who are supposed to be employed, but unfortunately they are not being employed. They become part of the labor force. So in Nigeria today, we have more youth than adults in Nigeria today. So having a youth population supposed to be a plus to the country, but because of the failure of the government in providing what we call better job opportunities. If there is stable power supply, you can decide to create your own job yourself as an intellectual.
If you look at it, there are job opportunities. However, they are in the service delivery sector, not in the production sector.
When we are talking about the real sector, you talk more about the manufacturing sector and the production sector. In economics, you talk more when you are talking about the real sector of the economy. You talk about the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector, which is the production sector. We don't talk more about the service sector Because we have some people today who are gifted naturally to provide a service. But when we are talking about your GDP, you talk more about the number of goods that your country produces. That is what they are more interested.
How many goods are leaving the shores of
your countries? So when you are now talking about GDP per capita, you talk about the value of the aggregate goods that were being produced by your country and sold, divided by your population. So you see, GDP per capita in Nigeria is low. Our population is increasing, but the GDP in Nigeria is low because we don't produce. Assuming Nigeria was producing goods, the value of those goods that is being sold in dollar, you now divide it by your population, the current population, it will now give you what? Your GDP per capita. That is the computation.
Well, we'll pivot to solutions to these problems after this break. Stick around. Don't go away. All right, welcome back from that break. Ignatius, both reports call for urgent targeted social protection. So what does this entail? We've been talking about the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, the World Bank report, poverty, multidimensional poverty, rural poverty, urban poverty. So now, what does this really entail?
You know, it's just unfortunate
when you look at solutions.
You know, it's just unfortunate that sometimes the way we run our own style of capitalism in this country, most of our leaders, they are tied to the apron string of World Bank and the IMF, which are a capitalist institution established by the West. So there's a big problem on ground. You know, this issue of removal of the oil subsidy was what actually triggered what we call that's what we call multiplier effect. And the removal of the oil subsidy have not actually transformed the lives of the ordinary Nigerians, though the country has made a lot of revenue from it. But what has it translated to? It has not transformed the lives of the ordinary Nigerian. Because there is one thing you must know about subsidy. Subsidy, to me, I see it more as a welfare package. That is what subsidy is all about. If not that the way it was being handled in Nigeria. But economists will tell you that subsidy causes what we call price distortions and market inefficiencies in a capitalist market. Those are just theory. Sometimes the theory does not apply in some peculiar situation. So when you say you remove the oil subsidy, after removal of the oil subsidy, did you create more jobs? How many industries have you established? Assuming the government, after removing the oil subsidy, decided to build more industries, coastal industry, decided to revamp some of our ailing industry, decided to fund Ajakuta steel industry, and the rest like that, people will not complain. People will be gainfully employed. Someone that is employed or somebody that has that job opportunity to become self-employed today, the person will have money to satisfy human wants. But most people today, they are unemployed. They just roam about the streets. And some of them have become what we call a threat to national security because of the struggle to survive. So there is a big problem on ground. The government is not getting it right. There is difference between theory and your own word, peculiarity as a nation. What applies in America may not apply in Nigeria. Theoretically.
When you say government is not getting it right, we've tried as a country to get it right from 1960 till date. What is that X factor? What's that missing link?
The missing link there is this: we are having corrupt leaders. How will you watch your own house fading away? There is what we call maintenance. If you build a house, it is expected of you that in the next 10 years you should repaint the house.
But are there social protection programs that this government can come up with to solving these issues?
You know, most of the social protection programs that they come up with, they call it empowerment program. And sometimes they say grants. Most of them are way of siphoning public funds. They are corrupt. There is what we call debt in AIDS. Nigerian government always depend on foreign aid and grants. Do you know that most of World Bank will give Nigeria money, grants? Some of these grants does not go to the target population.
You know, if you go back down memory lane, you find out that during the time of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida's regime,
Yes.
there was the Structural Adjustment Program,
Yes.
SAP.
Yes.
And later on, there was the NAPEP.
Yes.
We moved on to NAPEP, and Poverty Eradication Program.
Yes.
And then I asked myself, how do you eradicate poverty? You can only alleviate it,
Yes.
not eradication
Yes.
of poverty. And then we had the TED Fund, that's a Tertiary Education Trust Fund.
Yes.
You had so many plans.
And there was one Jonathan introduced, Shopee.
There was
Subsidy
Shopee.
reinvestment program.
Program.
Shopee.
Yeah, there was the Shopee program.
Yes.
That there was also this one where the Shopee was the one they were getting people, employing people to schools and all that. There was one that people were going to school. We had teachers. You had this and that. I remember the name now.
Is it PAP? During the days of Obasanjo?
No, Obasanjo's own was PAP.
Yes, PAP. Poverty
No.
Alleviation Program.
Program. This one is the last one. These people that complain that they've not been paying them as and when due.
Empower.
Empower.
Yes.
Thank you. The Empower
By
program.
Buhari's government.
That was Buhari's government.
Yes.
Now these are social protection programs.
Yes.
However, they have died with time. They have not been sustainable. Why have they not been sustainable? And how can we get a sustainable social protection program in the country?
The ball lies in the court of Mr. President. If he is determined and willing to do it. I'm not the president. He is the president. But Nigerians are demanding for what? A better life, a quality life, a meaningful life. The social protection program, look at what the Americans did. They believe that the only way to make the economy grow is to go by the way of capitalism. But they now put something into consideration, the welfare of their people. That is why in America today they say capitalism plus what? Welfareism. Most of our leaders today, like our Chief Jeremiah Oyeniyi Obafemi Awolowo, Baba is a socialist. Baba believed that when you are practicing socialism, you must also couple it with what? Welfareism. He was a welfareist. How many of these capitalist leaders in Nigeria today actually are welfareists? Those who are welfareists, they believe in the welfare of the ordinary people. So when we are talking about poverty in Nigeria, we are talking about the lives of the masses that is deteriorating on a daily basis.
How about the role of the private sector?
The private sector, they have a role to play to complement government effort. They are trying. The private sector are even trying. It's not easy to run business in Nigeria where there is no stable power supply, where there is no security that is being guaranteed. Most of these private investors depend on what we call diesel-powered generator, and which is not supposed to be. Now, the power minister came up with an idea. He said ban A, ban B, ban C, ban D, till ban infinity, according to him. But now, are we having what we call a stable power supply? If there is stable power supply, the private sector will be willing to invest into the economy. A lot of people want to invest in the economy. But it's very sad today, we are not having what we call stable power supply. You know that in the past, you used to have what we call this clipper, electric clipper.
Yeah.
Now, because we don't have stable power supply,
It's wireless.
it's wireless
You
now.
charge.
To charge. So there is a big problem in Nigeria. Our leaders are not getting it right, especially in the power sector. And a lot of money has been wasted in the power sector. Nothing to show for it as a result of what? Corruption.
We'll still discuss the power sector in one of our episodes. We'll look at the sabotage in the power sector, as it were. So, dear audience, what are your thoughts? Tweet at us at Dominion Cast on the app X. Let's hear from some of our viewers and listeners who've been sending in questions via the app X. This message from Ade in Lagos is saying, good morning to Chike and Ofino. If poverty is hitting 62% and affecting 141 million of us, why do we keep hearing about GDP growth? Is the economy growing only for the rich while the rest of us suffer? That's Ade's question. You want to quickly answer that question?
Yeah, if you look at Nigerian economy for now, it's fluctuating. It's a fluctuating economy. We are not actually getting it right. There are things that make the economy to grow. And one of the things that make the economy to grow is what I did mention earlier. I said stable power supply, guaranteed security, political stability, economic reforms.
But because of our time, what Ade is asking is, we keep hearing about GDP growth. Is the economy growing only for the rich while the rest of us suffer?
You know what this government have done? When you're talking about GDP growth, I don't think they are actually computing it from the real sector.
Okay.
They are only computing from the service sector. I stand to be corrected. Because if you are talking about the real sector, you are talking about the manufacturing. Where are the industries?
So there's actually no growth in its essence.
Yes, because when you look at that figure, can you use it for research, for an international research? Can it be used for international research?
It's vague.
It's
right?
vague.
Okay.
So when we are talking about the real GDP, you don't talk about the service sector. You talk more about the production sector, the manufacturing sector that produces goods. And these goods are being sold in the goods market.
So as long as that is elusive, we keep plunging into poverty.
Yes.
All right, from Fatima. Fatima is sending this from the north. It says Kano. It says, my family can barely afford food anymore after fuel and naira changes. What specific social protection programs like cash transfers or food subsidies does the federal government need to expand right now to help people like us survive?
You know, that's what we call social security or welfare. When you see people leaving the shores of Nigeria, going to America, well, in America, there is what we call the social security. It's there. So America now felt that, no, you people are becoming a liability to us. So they want to send people back to their country. So there is nothing wrong if the government decide to introduce what we call social safety nets, just to ameliorate the suffering on one part.
I hope Nigerians will not be caught in that net.
Social safety net. But what is very germane, if you want to see a serious government, you should go and invest in the agricultural sector. There should be cottage industry be established in our rural areas. Agriculture has a large value chain. The production chain is there. The processing chain is there. The marketing chain is there. The transport chain is there. In the agricultural sector alone, they have to ensure that the private sector build industries, and those industries that have become moribund, the Mr. President have a role to play. You know, Showore accused him. He said all the whole travel that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made, that he should come and tell Nigeria who among those countries have come to invest in Nigeria in terms of manufacturing sector. That was what Showore said. He raised an observation. You keep traveling from one country to the other, fine. You must lobby with them, fine. But who among these countries that you have gone to, who among them is willing to come and invest in your own country? They will not invest. Do you know why? We are failed in combating terrorism. And it's a problem. A terrorist can decide to blow up a company. A terrorist can decide to become a suicide bomber and blow up a company. That becomes a business loss. So there's a problem on ground in this country. Fight terrorism first. Foreign investors will be willing to invest in your country. If you don't combat terrorism in Nigeria, it will be very difficult for someone that is sane, logical, and rational to come and invest in Nigeria as a foreigner.
Well, Emeka in Abuja is saying, the middle class is disappearing fast in my area. Friends are selling cars, delaying school fees. How can we rebuild the middle class? Is it through more jobs in tech and agriculture or something else?
In both. Agriculture, tech too.
That's services and manufacturing.
Yes, and manufacturing sector. Okay. We have to be serious with it. You and I must love our country. But our leaders, are they do they actually love this country? Because if they love the country, they will not watch this country deteriorating economically. A mother will never allow her son or daughter to go to sleep hungry. Will not.
Well, I have two more questions because of our time. Miriam in Ibadan is saying, experts talk about reforms, but the insecurity in farms is making food prices sky high. How can targeted programs address insecurity and famine to bring down poverty faster?
Yes, you know, if not for the issue of Boko Haram that happened in Nigeria, the prices of food in Nigeria will still have remained moderately low. A lot of farmers were being killed by bandits and terrorists.
And also,
farmers are paying tax to bandits.
And some herders too.
Yes, we need plant protein for our survival. We need animal protein for our survival. I'm looking for a way in which the herdsmen and farmers will live together in peace and unity. You know, animal dungs will fertilize the soil. The farmer will now plant seed inside the soil. When the seed now germinates, it produces fruit. The farmer can then decide to say, out of these crops now, I want to give the herdsmen part of it too. There should be more synergy between the herdsmen and our farmers. They have to work together hand in hand. But it's not fair for a herdsman to allow his animal to graze on a cropland. It's not fair. To me, it's not fair. Yes. Well, a crop is already grown. Then you now send your animals to go and graze those crops. It's not fair. To me, it's not fair.
That's crop terrorism. Yeah. Well, John Goodhead in Port Harcourt is saying, this sounds hopeless. 141 million people, poor people by the end of 2026. What gives you hope that things can improve by 2027? What must President Tinubu's administration do differently in next year?
He must invest
Just in 1 minute.
Yes, he must invest in agriculture.
Okay.
He must invest in agriculture.
Prioritize agriculture.
Yeah, prioritize agriculture.
Okay. Okay.
Let's grow what we need.
So as we wrap up, Ignatius, let's have your final takeaway on the program this morning.
Let's think of the next Nigerian generation, making maximum impact and shaping the future.
Very succinct there. Well, thank you, Ignatius Ofino, for your insights, and to our audience, these predictions are dire but actionable. Demand better from your leaders. Don't fold your arms. And that's all for today's agenda. Join us next time on The Agenda. I am Chike Obogu. Stay informed and stay empowered.